Hello, all, and welcome to this evening's beer review, which I am dubbing the Gecko Poop and Technical Difficulties beer review. So, I'm actually doing a comparison review tonight, and yeah, so I've got two glasses out, and I noticed that this one had gecko poop on the bottom of it. Now, I don't use soap to clean my beer glasses, obviously, because it has very bad effects on it. But one thing about gecko poop is that it dries like cement. So, of course, I take out my bottle brush. And lo and behold, I find my bottle brush is infested with roaches, which makes it a no-go. So I'm stuck trying to clean out the very bottom, scrub out the very bottom of this glass with a hand that is wider than this glass is. Luckily, my fingers are pretty long, so I was able to get at least this far in. It was intensely frustrating, let me tell you. So, what is our comparison review tonight? Well, I don't know if I've actually reviewed both of these. I reviewed one of them, I'm pretty sure. But both of them, I don't think so. But what we are reviewing today is Sapporo Premium Beer and Sapporo Reserve Beer. Now, this is, of course, both Japanese lagers, contract brewed in California. Well, actually, no. Wow, interesting. Look in the back here. Well, it doesn't want to do it now, but it says product, you can see a little bit here, product of Vietnam. So, yeah, beer from Vietnam. That's a new one on me, folks. That's a new one on me. Well, anyways, the silver can is an adjunct lager, 4.9 ABV, and this one is a 100% malt, I believe Euro Pale Lager is the classification on this one, but it is 100% malt and 5.2 ABV. Oh yeah, Sapporo brewed in Sapporo, Vietnam. Interesting. So last time I checked, these were brewed in California. I guess they're brewed in Vietnam now. So I have these two glasses here. I'm not going to fill them up completely because what I was aiming for here was the same sort of amount so I could properly nose it and have it be in about the same shape. And I'm going to do it one by one because these being lagers, the head's probably going to go and dissipate fairly quickly. So I'm going to, of course, start with the American Adjunct Lager. And of course, these will be the only two beers I'll be having tonight. So I'm not going to do a full pour on this because I want to go with I'd say straw to golden yellow, clear, very well carbonated, with a thick fluffy white head. Sweet malts. And some grassy and slightly herbal hopping. Okay. Let's go and pour out the reserve. This is the all malt one. Again, giving it a fairly vigorous pour because I want to get that head there. I'd say a much more golden yellow, though the head is much more fizzy. While there's still the smell of crackery malts, slightly honeyed. I would actually say the hops are a little bit more muted on this one. I mean, you can tell they're there. The same quality, grassy, slightly herbaceous, but not as sharp, though. As you might notice, this one's a little bit further down. so my nose doesn't fit as far down the glass. You can see some real differences in coloration there. So again, premium, reserve, adjunct lager, all malt. Okay. I'm going to go and top it off a little bit to go and do the tasting here. Just realized I'm really thirsty. Finish is as clean as a whistle. Maybe just a slight ghost of hops and sulfur in the top note. Very watery body. And yeah, carbonation's a bit muted, but I'm not using the ideal glassware for this. And also, too, like I said, I gave it a vigorous pour to go and build up the head. So hop bitterness up front. Underneath that, just almost non-existent malts. There's a slight, very, very slight sweetness there. Very, very slight. But other than that, extremely dry. You know, that hop bitterness kind of cuts through that slight sweetness there like a knife. A brief sulfurous and mineral top note appears in the mids. All in all, not much in the way of taste. And I just realized I forgot to fill up my water glass here. So professional, these reviews, yeah? Almost like I'm doing them live. But if I ever did like live stream reviews, one thing you would find out about me is that I cuss like a sailor when I am even slightly irritated. Okay, on to the reserve beer. This is the all malt 5.2. Build up a little head again. Mmm. Much more body. Again, you know, it's not what I would call a thick or chewy beer, but by any means, but there's enough body there that it doesn't feel watery. Hop bitterness again is up front at its most, but is not as sharp and piercing. It's wider, rounder. And it also lasts longer. The hop bitterness lasts through until the finish and clears the palate. Though more hop bitterness is remaining, you know, on the tongue. But the malts totally clear the palate. The malts there are also slightly crackery, very slightly sweet, and again, overall quite dry. But like I said, a bit more body, a bit more taste. Okay, back to the premium. I'm noticing now as it warms up, much more of a metallic aftertaste. And that is somewhat unpleasant. Yeah, very unpleasant actually. It kind of tastes like I'm put something rusty in my mouth or something like that. Again, watery. As it warms up, the hops are becoming less sharp, but that doesn't mean that, they're improving. They're becoming dull now. It's also just that that subtle sweetness is becoming slightly weird. It's not much there, but in a certain respect, it's kind of cloying. Back to the reserve. Again, vigorous pour to build head. Hmm. That metallic aftertaste is also apparent in this beer as well, though not as much so because there's more body, there's more hopping there, and more malts too as it warms up. In fact, I say I would only really notice this metallic aftertaste because of this, that I kind of, you know, it's sort of the same thing, but it is much more intense in this, where it's pretty well buried in this one. Excuse me. I do kind of wonder though. So you kind of notice Sapporo is known for this, but these are bimetal cans. They're not true pure aluminum. They're like these thick sort of metal that I'm not sure what it is, but it's what these cans are made out of. And I kind of wonder if that is the cause of this sort of metallic aftertaste, since it's very much the same in both of them. It's just this one, the reserve obscures it more by having a fuller bodied beer with more flavor, whereas this one, being watery and less flavorful, has much more issues with that aftertaste. This one too is also, I would say, perceptively much drier. They're both dry beers, but this one, you know, it's about two steps up on the dryness scale. Now, the adjunct used here is not given, but I'm going to assume it's rice. And also, too, I would like to make a note that said these are contract brewed in Vietnam. When I was in Japan, I drank many, many Japanese macro lagers and never really ran into the metallic aftertaste thing that you see often in macro lagers sold here in the United States. So your mileage may vary with that sort of issue because it is the strongest issue with both of these beers. It takes this one from something that is insipid and mediocre into like, don't want to drink this, but not so that it's wretch and, it's not making me wretch and disgust. And it takes this one, which is, I would classify as perfectly serviceable Japanese restaurant beer, sushi beer, curry beer, Japanese curry beer, and just adds a slight flaw to it. One that I might not notice in certain, you know, unless I'm actively looking for it. So if I'm not actively looking for it, I mean, it might pass my senses, particularly if I'm eating food or if I've had a few already. They're both refreshing. I mean, I was one. So like I've gotten into debates on the online before about like, oh, these people who do tasting, it's all BS. They're just making things up. And I'd like to point out right here and right now that these are two beers from essentially the same maker, so they're using the same recipe, and the styles are not widely different, but they're still very distinctive. There's no way that someone with even a moderately trained palate would be confusing these two beers. Even though, again, like I say, they're from the same maker and from fairly related styles. I think that the difficulty in doing a blind taste comparison would actually be doing beers that are classified within the same style by, sort of related. So if I took like this one, and I think I might actually do that. So I did the Kirin Ichiban 100% malt review just a little while ago, which brought me to this particular review. I saw them right next to each other, and it was like, wouldn't it be interesting to go and put side by side two two beers from the same maker of and see what the results are. I think that the next thing I am going to review is the Sapporo Reserve with the Kirin Ichiban. Well, not the next thing I'm going to review because there's other things in the queue, especially since Randall was very generous and gave 4 whiskey bottles for me to review. So those are going into the queue too. Um, so yeah, I'm really thinking that this Sapporo Reserve beer is going to be something really interesting to compare side by side with that Kirin Ichiban, a 100% malt beer. Though I think actually this one, the Sapporo Reserve, is classified as a Euro Pale Lager, and the Kirin Ichiban is classified as an American Pale Lager. And those are really closely related. I would have trouble figuring out what exactly would be the distinction style wise in between those two beers. If somebody wishes to enlighten me, feel free to do so. And yeah, I believe, yeah, let's see here. There's about maybe 1/3 left in each of these cans, and these glasses are half full, and I believe I've had enough, especially on an empty stomach. And so I will be wrapping this up. This American Adjunct Lager style beer, kind of watery, massive taste flaw to it. Um, you know, and this one, I'm going to say is perfectly serviceable for, your Japanese restaurant needs. Honestly, a Sapporo Premium is probably serviceable too, because you're thinking about the food right there. And yeah, in a restaurant, you should be thinking about the food, not the beer. When you're at a craft bar, reverse. But yeah, I really should eat something right now. My body's telling me I really need to be eating something right now and not drinking any more beer. So I am going to go and heat up the dinner that my father has given me. And I am going to go and plan how I'm going to go about reviewing these whiskeys that Randall has so generously donated to the channel. And that, folks, is your beer comparison review for tonight. Cheers. And I'm not going to drink from two glasses at the same time. Sorry, that's just absurd.